A sense of mischief hung in the air as soon as the sun sank below the horizon, casting long shadows across our quiet suburban neighborhood. My friends, Mark, Sarah, and I, stood in front of the looming, abandoned building that had become the stuff of legends among the kids in our town. We were all between 13 and 15, and the allure of adventure had overtaken us. The building had been vacant for as long as anyone could remember, an eerie relic of the past, its windows boarded up like blind eyes that had seen too much. Tonight, we were determined to uncover its secrets. A weak, weathered plywood board covered one of the windows, and with a synchronized pull, it gave way, granting us access to the darkness within. We entered cautiously, the beam of Mark's flashlight cutting through the thick, musty air. Dust danced in the light's path, making it seem like a spectral realm. Our footsteps echoed on the cracked linoleum floor as we moved deeper into the abandoned structure. It was like stepping into a time capsule, frozen in a bygone era. Our curiosity led us to scattered remnants of forgotten lives, crumpled dollar bills, an open bottle of liquor, and a makeshift bed cobbled together from torn fabric scraps. Whispers of laughter and sorrow seemed to cling to the peeling wallpaper, and I couldn't help but wonder who had lived here and what had driven them away. Mark, always impulsive, picked up the liquor bottle and proposed a toast to our newfound adventure. We hesitated momentarily, but the thrill of breaking the rules overcame our better judgment. We each took a sip, and the harsh, burning sensation down our throats was a glorious reminder of our rebellion. Sarah, ever the daredevil, grinned mischievously. You know what would make this even more fun? A game of hide and seek. Nervous laughter filled the room as we debated the idea. The allure of the unknown was irresistible, and eventually we agreed. I volunteered to be the seeker, and Mark and Sarah scattered into the dark corners of the building while I counted down from 100. 99, 98, 97. My voice wavered as I went through the dimly lit rooms, my flashlight casting eerie shadows on the decaying walls. As I counted, I couldn't help but feel the weight of the abandoned building closing in on me, its secrets lurking just out of reach. I reached the final countdown, my heart pounding in my chest. 3, 2, I whispered, my voice trembling, and then I heard it. A creaking floorboard, the faintest rustle of a movement. Someone else was in the building. My flashlight trembled in my hand as I turned, and my heart plummeted into my stomach. A haggard and disheveled man emerged from the darkness, his eyes gleaming with anger and madness. He had entered through a different board, unseen by Mark and Sarah. He was counting down too, and he wasn't playing a game. With each step he took, his face contorted in fury, his eyes locked on Mark, who was hiding just a few feet away. The man's voice grew louder as he counted. 3, 2. I wanted to scream, to warn Mark, but terror had paralyzed me. The man was almost upon him, the metal bar in his hand gleaming ominously in the dim light. And then, with a sickening thud, he struck Mark, who cried out in pain. I couldn't watch it any longer. I turned and fled, footsteps echoing through the darkened hallways as I ran. Panic coursed through my veins, and the sinister secrets of the abandoned building seemed to conspire against me. I had to escape to find help for my friends. The man's enraged screams echoed behind me, growing fainter as I raced toward the broken window that had been our entry point. With desperation, I burst through the plywood, splinters tearing at my skin, and stumbled into the night. Tears streamed down my face as I ran, my heart heavy with guilt and fear. I knew I had left my friends behind, and had no idea if they were alive or dead. The abandoned building loomed in the distance, a haunting reminder of the horrors. The police arrived soon after my frantic call, and the search of the building revealed the terrible truth. Mark was unconscious, badly injured, but still alive. Sarah, however, was nowhere to be found. The man, the twisted stranger who had invaded our game, had vanished into the shadows, leaving only questions and nightmares behind. In the days that followed, I couldn't escape the feeling that the abandoned building had taken something from us, something precious and innocent. It had become a symbol of our darkest fears, a place where the line between curiosity and danger had been irrevocably blurred. As for me, I was haunted by the memory of that night, by the choices we had made, and the consequences we had faced. The abandoned building would forever be a chilling reminder that some secrets were better left undisturbed, lest the darkness that lurked within consume us all. The city was a harsh place for a kid like me, lost in the maze of towering buildings and rushing crowds. One fateful day, I couldn't bear it anymore. I packed a small bag, left a note, and slipped away from home, determined to run away from the confines of my life. I wandered the city streets for hours, my stomach growling with hunger and my heart heavy with uncertainty. Nightfall cast long shadows across the urban landscape, and I sought refuge in an abandoned building I stumbled upon. The decaying structure loomed like a ghostly sentinel, its windows shattered and its walls bearing the scars of time. Inside, the air was musty and thick with the scent of decay. The building's once grand interior had crumbled into disrepair, leaving behind a sinister aura that sent shivers down my spine. It was the perfect place to hide, to escape the world that had become too much to bear. As I ventured deeper into the building, I heard hushed voices echoing from a room down the hallway. Curiosity got the better of me, and I cautiously approached, peeking through a cracked door. What I witnessed froze my blood and rooted me to the spot. In the dimly lit room, a group of men in dark suits sat around a table, their faces obscured by shadows. At the head of the table, a man with piercing eyes and a cruel smile presided. He seemed to be leading a meeting of some kind, but the atmosphere was tense, charged with an unspoken dread. Suddenly, a gunshot rang out, a sharp crack that shattered the silence. I gasped in shock, unable to contain my fear. The men at the table sprang to their feet, their faces contorted with surprise and panic. One of them had been killed, a bullet tearing through his chest, and now his lifeless body slumped in a chair. In a haze of terror, I let out a yelp of fright, unable to control my instinctive response. Panic coursed through my veins as I realized my mistake. I was on the third story of the abandoned building, exposed and vulnerable, my presence betrayed by my own fear. The man who had fired the fatal shot turned toward the doorway, his gaze locking onto me with chilling intensity. There was no time to think. Instinct took over, and I turned and sprinted down the hallway, my heart pounding in my chest. Behind me, I could hear the heavy footsteps of the killer as he gave chase. I darted through the darkened corridors, my breath coming in ragged gasps. My pursuer was relentless, closing the gap between us with each passing moment. My only hope was to find an escape route before he caught up to me. I burst out into a rusted fire escape, the cold night air hitting me like a shockwave. Desperation fueled my climb down the rickety metal staircase, my fingers aching as I clung to the railing. The sound of the killer's footsteps echoed above me, growing fainter as I descended. Finally, my feet hit the pavement, and I sprinted away from the abandoned building, my heart pounding in my chest. I didn't stop until I reached the safety of my home, where I collapsed in tears, unable to comprehend the horrors I had witnessed. Through my tearful account, I told my parents about the murder, about the man who had chased me through the abandoned building. Fear and disbelief clouded their faces, but they wasted no time. They called the police, and soon officers arrived to investigate the scene. The abandoned building became the epicenter of a police investigation, a grim reminder of the darkness that could lurk in hidden corners of the city. The body of the victim was unearthed from a makeshift grave outside, and as the investigation unfolded, the truth about the sinister meeting and its deadly consequences came to light. The man who had chased me through the abandoned building was apprehended, and justice was served for the murder he had committed. But the scars on my psyche ran deeper than I could ever know. Running away had seemed like an escape from my problems, but it had led me straight into a nightmare. The abandoned building, once a refuge, had become a house of horrors, and the shadows that had lurked within its walls have haunted my dreams ever since. Being homeless carries a significant stigma, often overshadowing the harsh realities of those living on the streets. It's a struggle for survival, and many individuals in such circumstances are merely trying to get through each day with the little they have. The abandoned building had become a lifeline for me, a place of refuge from the unforgiving streets and the cold indifference of society. Each night, as I nestled into my makeshift nest of cardboard and old blankets, the abandoned building's creaks and groans felt like lullabies, lulling me into a fitful sleep. It may not have been much, but it was my home. I'd become intimately acquainted with every nook and cranny, every peculiar sound, and every faint glimmer of light that filtered through the broken windows. It was a solitary existence where I had only myself to rely on, my survival skills honed to their sharpest. The building, with its hidden corners and secret passageways, became my fortress against the dangers that lurked in the darkened alleys. I had learned to navigate its treacherous terrain, to find food and warmth amidst the debris, and to defend my meager belongings from other homeless individuals equally desperate to cling to some semblance of dignity. The city's indifference was a constant companion, but it was not the only threat I faced. Violence and exploitation were everyday realities for the homeless. Some preyed on our vulnerability and saw us as easy targets for their sadistic pleasures. They were the true horrors that haunted the streets, lurking like predators, waiting for an opportunity to strike. One frigid night, I heard distant voices approaching as I huddled in my makeshift nest of cardboard and old blankets. My heart pounded in my chest as I realized that I was not alone. The building was my refuge, but it was not a secret. Others had sought solace here, and they were approaching now, their laughter echoing through the empty halls. I cowered in the darkness, my heart heavy with fear. The group that entered the building was a motley crew of young men, no older than their early 20s. They swaggered in the air of their bravado, their faces masked by hoodies and scarves, their steps heavy with weight of their intentions. They called themselves the Reapers, wannabe gangsters with no real cause or purpose. I had heard rumors about them, tales of petty crimes and reckless behavior that had earned them the reputation as troublemakers, but I had never imagined that they would invade my sanctuary. They were armed with makeshift weapons, a baseball bat, a chain, and brass knuckles gleaming in the dim light. They came to the abandoned building to prove their worth and solidify their status within their fledgling gang. And I, the homeless man they had found hiding in the shadows, was to be their unwitting victim. The leader, a burly young man with a twisted grin, approached me first. He kicked me hard in the ribs, and pain shot through my body like lightning. I gasped for air, struggling to stay conscious. "What do we have here, boys?" he taunted, looking down at me with cold, heartless eyes. "Looks like we got another rat in our little hideout." The others laughed, their voices echoing off the dilapidated walls. I had no strength left to fight back and no chance of escaping the horrors about unfolding. They had found their prey, and they were hungry for blood. The beating that followed was merciless. a savage frenzy of fists and kicks that left me bruised and broken. They reveled in their cruelty, relishing the power they held over me. I tried to plead for mercy, but my words were drowned out by their sadistic laughter. As the pain overwhelmed me, I realized they were not content with violence. Their intentions were far more sinister. The leader pulled out a knife, its blade glinting in the dim light, and the others gathered round in a grotesque circle. "This is how you prove your loyalty," he declared, his voice dripping with malice. "You take a life and become a reaper for real." I watched in horror as they began carving symbols into my forehead, representing their twisted gang. The pain was excruciating, but it was nothing compared to the terror that gripped my soul. They were preparing to end my life, to sacrifice me in some grotesque ritual. As the blood flowed down my eyes, reddening my vision, I mustered the last strength to fight back. With a desperate kick, I knocked the knife from the leader's hand, sending it clattering to the floor. Chaos erupted as the other Reapers scrambled to regain control, their frenzy disrupted. Amid the chaos, I seized my chance to escape. I staggered to my feet, my body aching and battered, blood covering my face, and I fled into the darkness of the abandoned building. The Reapers gave chase, but I knew the building better than they did. I darted through hidden passageways and secret staircases, my heart pounding. The night air was cold and unforgiving as I stumbled into the old fire escape. Gasping for breath, I clutched my bruised and fractured ribs. The pain a constant reminder of the horrors I had just narrowly escaped. The cold night, harsh as it was, felt like a breath of life compared to the malevolent darkness of the abandoned building. I didn't look back or glance over my shoulder at the place that had been my sanctuary and my prison. The twisted halls, once my savior, now held unspeakable memories that clawed at my mind. The Reapers had revealed the true horrors that could lurk in the darkness, and I had narrowly escaped their sadistic initiation. My skin bore the permanent scars, etched with their symbol, an emblem of their depravity. As I stumbled through the unfamiliar streets, my battered body a testament to my ordeal, I realized that my understanding of the city had changed forever. The streets were no longer just a place of solitude and survival. They were a battlefield where the forces of cruelty and despair waged a relentless war. The scars on my body constantly reminded me of the price I had paid for my fleeting encounter with the Reapers. But they also reminded me of the strength I had discovered within myself, the determination to survive against all odds. I was no longer just a homeless man trying to eke out an existence. I was a survivor who had faced the darkest depths of human cruelty and emerged battered but unbroken. In the following days, I sought help from organizations that supported the homeless. They offered medical attention for my injuries and a place to sleep that didn't involve cardboard and old blankets. But the emotional wounds ran deep, and the memories of that fateful night haunted my dreams. I couldn't help but wonder about the others, the Reapers who had sought to claim my life as some twisted initiation rite. Had they continued their reign of terror? Had they found new victims to torment in the shadows? The city was vast, and its secrets were well hidden, making it impossible to track them down. My journey from that point on was one of recovery and rebuilding. With the support of the organizations that had extended a helping hand, I began to piece my life back together. I found a job in a small apartment and slowly regained a sense of purpose. But the scars on my body and the memories in my mind were indelible. They were a constant reminder of the darkness that could consume even the most forgotten corners of society.